Hello and welcome to the live Cybersecurity Awareness Forum for June 14th, 2023. And today we are covering the topic of Security Awareness Month. I'm Scott Wright, the CEO of ClickArmor, and ClickArmor brings you this series of live panel discussions that really bring in professionals who are interested in security and security awareness to give their perspectives on various different topics. So I'm going to introduce the panelists in a couple of minutes, but this particular theme is actually, it's the third time that we've covered Security Awareness Month. We did it, first one about a year ago, and then we decided to do one again in September, just before Security Awareness Month, to see how people were doing in getting prepared, or if they were prepared or needed help or tips. And I thought it's really a good time before the summer starts, as Michelle was just saying before we started. There are a lot of people who do start planning this stuff pretty early. And I know from experience, there are people here in Canada that will be launching their programs, starting budgeting and planning in July anyway. So I thought we'd get a little bit ahead of them. But this session might go a little bit long. We keep it informal, but we have some slides and tips and questions to guide the discussion and hopefully keep value. Usually everybody stays on for the full hour. We may go a little longer than an hour. Hope you can stay with us. So I think at this point, part of our routine is everybody should type in where they're coming in from around the world. We've got some lovely interest from, we've got Copenhagen, we've got the UK. Who else is joining us? Virginia, our host, 2 from Denmark. So we're getting a big presence in Denmark. Miami, Calgary. That is awesome. Rhode Island, Houston. Cool. Really glad that everybody can join us from wherever you are, Mississippi, Toronto. Awesome. Well, this could go on for a long time because this is by far the biggest session that we've had. So I was mentioning this Security Awareness Month session we did in a year ago. It's actually on our YouTube channel. It's the most watched episode. It was our very first episode. But there's the second most watched, I think, is the other security awareness one we did in Security Awareness Month in September, I think it was. So let's see if we can make this one even bigger. Certainly I think we had over 230 registrants, according to LinkedIn when we had the event page last time I checked it, and a number of people who registered directly on our Zoom page. So really happy everybody could join us, and this is going to be a fun session. I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves, but at the same time, I'm going to start our poll. We'd like to just sort of get some input from people, and the panelists won't be able to answer the poll, but they can see the questions, and I'll walk through them shortly after we do the intros. So I'll start with Ryan and then go to Michelle and then Fleetus.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ryan Healey-Ogden. I am the Director of Business Development here at ClickArmor. I have a passion for cybersecurity and security awareness, and Scott and I are very pleased to have you here, and thank you to the other panelists for joining me as well.
Thanks. Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm representing the EU today from the future, even though I have the SF background. So I consult in security awareness and culture and help businesses to kind of find their way. And I'm currently working for an organisation in London, which is great fun. And yeah, I just like helping people to kind of find ways to stay safe and secure online, but in a fun way.
That's great. My geography may be out of date, but is UK in the EU again, or?
That's a very touchy subject.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I wish we kind of are geographically, not economically. Unfortunately,
yeah.
I voted to remain. I will get political there with that one. I think that's fair enough. Did not. I was actually living in the EU when we voted to go out, so it was an extremely painful topic. So yeah, I'll need therapy. Thanks now after this.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Way to bring it up, Scott.
Fleetus.
I'm Fleetus Poston. My day job is a security operations manager for CrashPlan, which we're a backup and recovery solution. Enjoy this topic. Very much into a security evangelist. Anytime I have the opportunity to speak about awareness, and I like to bring the security operations point of view to these calls and to discussions, as I think it's a value add to think about what your security operations team is doing to fuel managing your human risk within your organization.
That's great. And as I mentioned, I'm the CEO of ClickArmor, Scott Wright. Started doing security awareness training about 15 years ago after having done risk assessments and realizing that humans needed a little bit of help in getting up to speed on securing their systems. It's not all about the technology. So been teaching security awareness since about 2008 and developed ClickArmor a few years ago. That's we'll talk for a minute about that. We have a little special announcement to make later on, but we'll keep this focused on the topic at hand and the input from everybody. So thanks everybody for their introductions and for submitting your answers in the poll. We've got 20 poll respondents so far, so I'm going to just cut it off here. I think you've probably had time to go through it, and we're going to take a look at the results. So I should be sharing it with you. Hopefully you can see the results now. Out of, I think, 20 people who responded, the question number one was, is Security Awareness Month in October an important time of year for you? 11 out of the 20 said absolutely. 9 out of 20 said, I wish it was more important. Nobody said it doesn't achieve much. And nobody said, I think it's pointless, which is a little bit in contrast to the responses we got on LinkedIn. And some of them might have been flippant, but we're in the serious mode here now. But so I'm going to ask the panelists in a minute what they think of these particular questions. Actually, let's just do it while we're on these questions. So, Michelle, any comments on the importance, the perception of importance?
Okay, so I'm going to be a bit controversial and say that I often haven't done it. Because I have sometimes felt that the messaging around it has been somewhat confused. And I've joined organizations or worked with them when it was just, I've started in September and it's just been too fast. Particularly in the UK, we have that's when we do our Black History Month work. That's when we have it kind of runs a little bit too close to Asian Heritage Month. So there's quite a lot of other things. So I'll come back to this later on because I don't want to monopolize, but often we've done things which relate to those populations and keeping their kind of concerns online, which has been a better way working with the ERGs. But yeah, that's my perspective on it.
All right. I know Michelle and I got into a little bit of interaction on LinkedIn. It was all in fun, I think, hopefully. The question was, does security awareness actually cause, or somebody asked the question, anybody seen any evidence that Security Awareness Month actually makes any change? We could talk about that later, but that was what our chat was about. Felitus.
Oh, I'm going to probably side with Michelle. I think it generally doesn't achieve much because most organizations do it poorly. I think they try to slam content in a 4-week span. They try to monopolize your portals. They monopolize your inbox. There's value add if it's a 12-month process. Like if October is just a highlight of your security awareness program and not your security awareness program. I think most organizations use October as their awareness program for the rest of the year. So they fail to capitalize on the gains from your annual training, from your awareness programs, from hot topics. As I open, they fail to incorporate the incidents that your SOC is working or that your engineering team is blocking. So that's why I think it doesn't achieve much in most organizations.
Great. Ryan?
Yeah, I cannot disagree, obviously, with Felitus and Michelle. I think, Security Awareness Month does play an important part to kind of, be a landmark amongst a larger, obviously, program and security culture within organizations. Where I do find it extremely important, and I think it does have a lot of value, would be in kind of the smaller business, and newer business startups and that ecosystem, because at least it's an introduction and at least it gets in their face, whereas it might be missed by a lot of smaller orgs in normal kind of day-to-day life. And as we can all attest, if you've worked for a startup or smaller company before, there are a lot of reasons resources that are being spread quite thin. So I think the importance of having, a dedicated security, awareness month in our industry is kind of our outreach to those people that just haven't taken the blinders off yet. And we can kind of use it as a, hey, you got to pay attention to this. And then, of course, we can all spin it to be like, it shouldn't just be 1 month, it should be 12 months, and here we go. And much like, like in any other kind of month that we take the time to, recognize or reflect on a certain group or aspect, like Black History Month or Asian Awareness Month, again, we all hope that that's just a primer to kind of carry on and to take that, back to your teams and improve your culture overall. So I think it serves a great purpose. And yeah, I think it's our job as experts to really kind of hammer it home and make sure it doesn't die November 1st.
I wish they would coordinate. I mean, I've always said I wish there was a WebMD for cybersecurity. And we do have enough global liaison there. I mean, apart from we have so much global cybersecurity liaison work. I wish that we would work together and say, okay, it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, theme this, or these are the two themes we're talking about, because otherwise, what are you aware of?
Right.
What am I aware of cybersecurity? Okay, cool. But what am I aware of, and what do you want me to be aware of by Halloween that I'm not aware of? And Halloween I love, so I would always theme everything on Halloween.
Yes, we have that because I shared that with Scott and Ryan. Probably the NIST and the CSAF actually do a theme. Like they will come out with, this is your week 1 topic, this is your week 2 topic, this is your week 3, your week 4. So at least we have government agencies putting out something that can be uniform. So when you're hitting social media, when you're hitting like people's inboxes, that they can apply to their home, which we've talked in other places. It's a cybersecurity culture, and you have to build a habit. So this is where I think you have to play into those. So when you've got government agencies who are willing to give you a theme for 23, in this case, this is what week 1 is. When you're talking with practitioners at other orgs in the US, you have the ability, hey, I did this for this week. We talked about this. How did it go over at yours? So you have that knowledge share because you have a common theme if you followed it. Not every organization will follow it. And there's reasons not to, because sometimes it's not vector specific. It doesn't meet your line of business. Your organization's too large or too small for that topic that they place for that week, but they're at least a good benchmarking and starting point.
Yeah, I agree. I think everybody's kind of hit the nail on the head. One of the things Michelle said was, awareness of what, and I think we actually did a session in the summer last year on awareness of what, I think was the title of it. And it was really just pointing out that there's two kinds of awareness, right? There's the awareness that we have a problem that you need to address, and there's awareness of what to do in certain situations and how to help people when it comes to dealing with scenarios. So really good points. And I think, having an awareness month is more focused sometimes around just making sure people know that there is a problem and using that as a bit of a kickstart for going forward for the rest of the year. That's great. And anybody post anything in the chat that we should be recognizing there?
Yeah, I mean, Omar had great feedback. He said security awareness is an organic, continuous cycle that requires KPIs and marks to reach every month, quarter, and annually. Right. So it's a bigger picture item.
Yeah.
But yes, let's use October and the opportunity we have to get everyone to pay attention so we can try and make a difference.
Cool. So for those of us who are trying to get stuff done in October as a special initiative, I had the question, what do you see as the greatest challenges in creating successful Security Awareness Month? So out of the 20 people, 10 said lack of executive support, 10 said lack of budget, 8 said lack of resources for messaging, 7 said lack of time to plan, 4 said lack of ideas, 2 said overt resistance. So we threw that one in at the end after we thought about, well, maybe there's another reason why people aren't successful, right?
It can be within an organization. It can be very difficult. And I also think that security professionals don't help themselves all the time because we go in, I think it's very easy to go in. I think Fleet has alluded to this as well, and kind of go, oh, hey, this is my special month, like it's my birthday. Kind of. But if you haven't actually been to everybody else's birthdays and given them gifts, like have you participated in Pride or accessibility work, or, do you recycle? And do you even like put your coffee cup in the dishwasher instead of in the sink if you go into the office?
And take your old lunch out of the fridge.
Do you not microwave fish? All these kind of little things that you should be doing to kind of build rapport. I'm being a bit, ridiculous there, but it's those kind of things. So it's actually, do we have the buy-in? Because sometimes it's like, just because it's your special security month, we don't care because you're mean to us or you're the Department of No. So we do have to. I'm not saying that people are getting outright opposition or having that, because I'm sure they're working extremely hard, but they're probably inheriting that from somewhere as well. Because nobody would be on this call if they were not interested in kind of moving things forward.
Yeah. But I mean, I think we are getting, comments in the chat. We'll address them as we go. But Fleetus, your thoughts?
So a good friend of mine made this comment. He was talking with a security awareness officer. It's what they were able to get at his organization. And the elevator pitch with their CEO is, who are you? And what do you do? And they did like the entertainment side of security awareness. I create promos, I do videos, I do all this, versus coming with Omar's question, did you know 75% of our incidents were human-based this year? And this is why I am here, is to tackle the human side of it. So like understanding how to do that elevator pitch to go into the executive buy-in, let me sell that key performance indicator, that metric of why you employ me and my team. If it's a team, sometimes it's just one individual or half of an individual. Give them that, because executives want to hear a metric. They want to hear stats. They want risk. They want to see a quantitative risk, not a qualitative risk all the time. So if you can give them percentages to, like, again, from like the Verizon data breach report or another Intel feed, being able to give that metrics, but tie it back to your org, will get more buy-in for this. But you got to get away from, I'm just a marketer, because that's what some of your executives are going to see. You're just marketing. All you're doing is a marketer to security. I'm giving videos, I'm doing promos, I'm doing games, I'm doing drawings. All are great things, but they can't stop there.
Yeah, really good points. And in fact, just to add to that, it's not only explaining or having that interview, but it's actually, if you're trying to set up your program, you have to think about those things. What are the KPIs that would interest the executives, right? That you can use in your proposal to set something up.
Yeah, I think it comes down to a resource game. I mean, I think it was mentioned by Alana in the chat, like, she doesn't have a team to support her, but she's in charge of security awareness and she's trying to be a champion within her org. How is she expected to not only continue on with her mission, but then also, do all the extra things that would make Security Awareness Month, more impactful. And so, it comes down to resources for sure, which then also ties into funding and financing. And it's just that piece of the pie. It's like, how do you position yourself in the organization to get, your kind of initiative off the ground? And that's kind of what Michelle alluded to. If you don't go to everyone else's birthday, when you show up and ask for everyone to come to yours, maybe you're going to be in the lunchroom by yourself, right? So, it's part of that overall corporate culture, not only just the security culture, that everyone has to kind of be prepared to help each other out and to drive those things. But unfortunately I see it time and time again when it comes to security. It's like, in security culture, it's a hands-off approach, and they just want to leave it to the security team only. And it's not brought down from the top. HR isn't just showing up and saying, hey, we want to be involved and help this month. And the executive team isn't, setting aside time to say, how can we brainstorm as an organization to drive this down? And I think where's where the change needs to be, so the resources can be there to support the people that are doing this great work.
And the other supporting side, the more qualitative side of what Fleet has just said, is that you can say, I find that we often get too bogged down, and I'm not challenging what Fleet has said because I think it's a compliment to this. People often get bogged down in the numbers, and especially when they're starting out, or because I've been on my own doing stuff like this, and it's horrific. It's really challenging sometimes, and you can say, listen, 75% of your problems, or do you know that 60% of the issues in this region were caused because of this, or whatever. And this month is a really great opportunity for me to do the slower, gradual work, which we often forget about in awareness, to develop those relationships and trust, because my credibility is built by my trust, by my relationships, and those are going to be built in doing these things, which aren't, like I say, you don't want to make it all about, I'm doing a video and I'm doing this, it's already fun. But I'm going out and I'm doing the focus group. I'm doing this activity to meet people. These are my outcomes. These will be the results. This is how I will present it to you. And it's really just seeding that idea with them, with the management, that this is a slow, gradual pilot a lot. So they kind of get that, because business is a lot, we have to say outcomes, and we do say KPI or OKR and all these different things a lot, and we should, but also we have to make sure they understand that this is slow. And October can be a good starting point for that.
Yeah. Amazing. Great thoughts, folks. The third question in the poll was, what would you most like to be able to have as part of a Security Awareness Month program? So the options were special newsletter editions or columns. We had 4 out of 20 people, so that wasn't all that popular. Podcasts or videos, 8 out of 20 people. Fun events, 14 out of 20 people. That was the top one. Executive participation, 11 out of 20, so that's up there too. And prizes, rewards, and giveaways, 7 out of 20. So yeah, really interesting distribution of feedback there. And I'll start this one because I think there's some really interesting things. One of the things that I did work with a municipality last year that we had nothing to start with. And we were, I was trying to get them to start thinking around this time of year about doing something for October. And we ended up doing a series of executive interviews and recording them. And it was really interesting to get different executives' perspectives in their own words on security in the organization. And that really worked well because every week then we had 4 or 5 interviews. So we aired one every week during the program. So getting executives in and doing fun stuff, getting their views on it was really important for that one. Michelle, you go this time again.
Well, the fun activity. Do you want me to talk about
whatever you like?
Whatever you like. I think the big thing is the fun activity, or the activities. It's trying to get people in. I know Santander are doing a great podcast at the moment. It's actually available. I did a podcast in one place I worked. I liked it anyway, but then I like talking. But just listen to me. But yeah, that's the challenge, because nobody's really got budget anymore. I would say I think it's very challenging to get budget. Often people can't give prizes away because of whatever funding and stuff, or they might be publicly funded. And so we're making an escape room at the moment, I can tell you that, and that's been a lot of work.
Yes,
but it is because we're doing it ourselves and all the rest of it. But again, on my own, I tried to do something like that once, and it was just incredibly hard because I was trying to do everything else. But yeah, there's lots of different things you can do very simply that work. Just even like a focus group is is actually cool because people want to talk to you. People love to vent. Come and tell.
Yep. Just position it in a way that people get to say what they want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's not the most fun thing I would suggest, but it's
Fleetus?
So a lot of those, I think, all play together, and you probably heard me say, I'm not going to contradict, but I'm going to go back to what I was saying is we have to salt every activity that we do with security. I've talked about numerous before. It's building a security habit. So having a human-centric mindset. So some of you probably have read the recent thing I put out, like you got to stop and assess and just like let that person think for themselves, because we do it all day long. Like security shouldn't be something that's like, I'm forcing you to put a security hat on right now. It shouldn't be a hat. It should just be a piece of the puzzle that you're dealing with all day. It's one piece of your pie. Your job includes making secure decisions, managing the risk in everything we do. Like we all decide to put our seatbelt on, or we don't decide to put our seatbelt on our car. We decide to cross the road at the crosswalk. We don't decide to cross at the crosswalk. We determine risk all day long, a lot of times subconsciously. Security can be a subconscious task. So a newsletter to remind someone of a tip and trick. Your executive putting out a newsletter or a blog. Having a focus group or an Ask Me Anything or a panel discussion with just leaders in the org or individual contributors in the org. This is a great way to build your security champions up. Hey, I'm going to launch 5 new champions here in October month, and they're going to be in your line of business. Meet Sally, meet Bob, meet Joe. They're going to be your contact in November, December, March. Get to know them now. They're your conduit to get feedback, to share what's going well, what's not going well. So you can use everything that was in that poll by salting it into your culture and building off of each of those.
A lot of that's free. It's great. It's got such great ideas because it's free. And people go, a lot of people think they should do these massive things that for the whole organization and everything else, but it doesn't. It can literally be as simple as, hey, we've got these new champions, or, this is our CIO or or CTO who's going to talk or something. And it doesn't really matter. It's just little by little, we all think we have to do these massive things, and you'll burn out if you try and do it all. So I think it's great just to say really small things. It's free, use your people. And when you're talking about people, they love that because you're talking about them and you're just bigging them up. And it's great for their professional development and things, isn't it? And their reputation within the org. So it's all about security, isn't it? It doesn't have to be, hey, we're giving you this YubiKey or something really flash. I mean, I'd love that. God, I would love that. So give me the budget for that. But even that isn't scalable. It wouldn't say.
Yeah, and prizes are great, but what do they accomplish if they don't come with knowledge and learning and education? I think if I had to pick from the poll, I would probably pick the executives. That would be my goal, is to get every org top down, and like executives that have nothing to do with security and IT, but they are the ones that are talking about security awareness and best practices and examples. I would something not on the poll that I'd like to see is having those champions and those leaders from different parts of the organization, like HR and supply chain, in different procurement, talking about examples and real life scenarios of how security affects their job and their workflow. That then, those are the real life stories that would trickle down to their teams, because a lot of people, like, you could be sitting, way over in the procurement side of things, nowhere connected to people, right? You're just answering emails all day, filling out forms, and you don't really think, how am I, no one's going to phish me, no one's going to come after me, but you are a part of the supply chain attack. And then once you kind of fill people in on how their place, is in the ecosystem, I think then they're more aware of it, and they can then be more mindful of it and hopefully start to make better decisions. But if they think that it's just they're separated from cybersecurity, if they're just way over here in HR, if they're down the road in accounting, and that it doesn't touch them, I think that's when they start to feel kind of isolated, and they don't. Then what's October? It doesn't matter. It comes and goes, and no one talks to them about it in December, March, and everything else. And here we are. So I think those are my wish list items. Just a few easy ones.
And you've got internal resource as well. Normally, hidden away in the business, a lot of are people who can give talks or run little lunch and learns. Or I know lunch and learns could be a bit controversial. I don't love them particularly, but we often pay. I've seen organisations pay huge amounts of people to come in and talk about social engineering or whatever it is, right? But you often have those people who can talk about that. They're probably on your team. They're probably somewhere. But I found out there's somebody, in the depths of my organisation who runs training at a university, and they're pretty renowned. So it's great, cool. Maybe you could run a session I'm not saying that would be awareness month necessarily, but it could be for some of your dev teams or something, because they also need security, even though they're technology.
Yeah.
But often there'll be people who can talk about this kind of thing, who are in HR, like you say, or finance or something, who would maybe have a story to tell or a skill.
That's a great tip. It's a great tip to every manager listening right now, is to know your teams and know the strengths of your teams outside of what their day-to-day functions are. Because I guarantee you have resources within your team that can help your organization in security or in other, aspects of the world. And that inclusion, will build a better security culture and a better organizational culture.
Yeah.
Excellent. I wanted to ask Stefan. He put his hand up, has a comment, I think. So, Stefan, do you want to go ahead if you're? I think you're on mute still. Can you unmute? Anyway, he had something to say. Hopefully, he'll be able to join in a moment.
While he's unmuting, I'll just say one little thing that sometimes it's easy. Like I like Ryan and Michelle's point, a day in the life example goes a long way. Like, hey, I got phished, but this is how I knew about it. I had my identity stolen. This is what now I do to protect myself. Like a day in the life or a spotlight is probably a better. Let's do a spotlight. And it can be any of the topics that you just put on the screen, but it could also be from a finances point of view. I'm an accounts payable person. I know what it's like to see an ACH scam or a BEC scam. I can talk to you from the end user's point of view versus from the security's point of view. Those are other good opportunities for Awareness Month or the rest of the year. Just have them spotlight. This is how I stopped an attack, and this is how I saved the company. This is how we did this together.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent point.
All right. I think Stefan said he had to step away for a minute for contractors. We all do that sometimes. But if you're there, Stefan, just feel free to jump in when you have a moment. And I think just while we're on this slide, it's really sometimes you can't think of things to do. We just put up a few topics here that they sort of reflect on some of the use cases or situations that Fleeta's just mentioned. Are you there, Stefan?
Sorry about that.
No worries. Can hear you. Oh, we don't hear you now. Uh-oh, audio problems.
We might have to grab that question out of the chat.
Yeah. If you can type the question or comment in the chat, Stefan, I'm not sure why your audio is not working, but all good. If you can get it working, feel free to jump in again. We'll try and listen to you. Things that you can do also, we sort of came up with this list that might be helpful to people, creating a series of events. I mentioned, doing once a week kinds of interview publications, anything on here that kind of resonates with panelists or the people in the audience, things that you've seen work or had challenges.
The make it real use case studies. I think that one's kind of been highlighted a few times. And I'm a big fan of that one. Security champions, I would pick out from there. And budget approval. That should be, again, part of an annual process, right? So again, you got to be future thinking about this. And so if you're going to sit down in September to build your budget for 2024, then yeah, this September you need money for next October. So you have that extra bump and you have that ability to execute the programs you want to do. I think, most of these are all kind of great ways to really kind of, take it up a notch, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so. And as we talked about, some of the larger organizations, set aside quite a bit of time because they know it's going to take some negotiations to find people who can help and get the budget approved. And if you have to purchase anything, it's good to get the budget done, especially before summer when everybody goes away.
Or reaching out for prizes from partners and different things like that. Those are all long approving processes that you can't really do, September 15th.
Yeah, exactly. Same for communications. That was one thing that I found in the organization I was working with. They had a lot of great participation from communication organization that could do graphics and, edit videos and stuff like that. So you start reaching out to those people around this time. So we put together a little list of places more or less government oriented where a lot of work has been done already that you might be able to leverage and make use of. I tried to make it easy for people watching on video to get the QR codes for each of these, and so you don't have to type away the URLs. But yeah, so there's NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, National Cybersecurity Alliance, the cyber. Okay, what is this, Fleeta? Cyber?
I knew you were going to do that to me. I think it's information
security.
But I'm like, you put me on the spot. I forgot.
Yeah, so I think it's Cyber and Information Security Agency or something. Yeah. Anyway, sorry about that. In Canada,
I knew you were going to do it, and I just didn't go looking.
In Canada, we've got actually Public Safety Canada in conjunction with the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity publishes stuff, and they do a really good job every year of putting together things that can be shared. They just put it on their website so you can grab it as well. And they'll be starting to do their planning in a month or so. I've been involved in that a few times.
CISA is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Thank you, Alana from chat. Another acronym. We love acronyms.
We love them.
We love acronyms.
Michelle, are there resources in the UK? And
yeah, I was just going to say, how discriminatory. Just because we're a tiny island. Oh my goodness. How rude.
There's a logistical reason why you didn't get your input on that, but we'll solve that later.
No, to be fair, we've got the NCSC that does a huge amount of stuff, and they actually pair with the Commonwealth, obviously, so controversial topic, but I know they pair with the Australian cybersecurity agencies, which do some really cool work as well, and they put out some stuff. So yeah, we have the NCSC.
Excellent. Okay, as Stephen suggested, I'm going to copy and paste the links
I got
into
that,
chat.
Scott.
You got it?
Yep.
Great. Excellent. And so then I think we've talked a bit about KPIs. Anybody want to sort of go in a little more detail around what does success look like, and what KPIs do you typically want to see?
You're still in a job at the end of October. We survived. You've got your bucket full of candy, but I hate metrics. It's partly because I've got dyscalculia, so I'm not very good with numbers. But seriously, I think it can often be as simple as, well, we had this session, and 10 people came, 10 people attended when they didn't before, or we got this to this many people, or we you can take just the example, we launched these champions and now in their teams, and actually we're going to measure that later on, because you might not have anything necessarily by the end of October. It might be we're doing this and we're showing you this, and we get a little bit of engagement, and then in the next few months, so again, you'll see the gradual, we're going to see this is we introduced, we presented, we piloted this, we did this session with the CIO, and it was asynchronous, so 25 people turned up, which might actually be a success. It's been a success in organizations I've worked for, 25, and you wouldn't think that was great, but then it's async, and then we're going to monitor the views, and we're going to see the comments, and we're going to see what people thought of it. So it can be like that as well.
That's
rather
great.
than saying 0.2% of the company looked at
well, one or two of those people might end up becoming a security champion, and they might become a leader in the organization, right? So
yeah,
sometimes KPIs or numbers aren't as meaningful in weight as you might think. I'm just thinking of other ways you might see or call it a success.
So I'm going to come at it from my day job, my security operations. If I can tie root causes back to the awareness program, that if my humans, my peers saw something, said something, and you can reduce my response time or the number of incidents, that talks as well. Like when I'm told about a phishing email, when I'm told about a cold call that's offering up information, when I'm given information that allows my team to investigate quicker, it drives down my response time. So my mean time to resolution. Also the champion, like we went from 1 to 5, we went from 5 to 15, we went from 15 to 30. Of that, I now have the phishing sim has gone down because they have done a roadshow in their org. They've talked to their org. So you can show the fact that you have people boots on the ground helping show the value add of reporting, of assessing. And we can, at that point, start saying, we've saved you X dollars because you can do calculations on how long it takes for a certain type of attack. And now I can put monetary cost, which gets more into the OKRs, but that's still a KPI in the essence that you can drive year over year. So.
And also don't forget, I said at the top, with working with the ERG, I found that is a really great way to get your metrics up, if you like them. I mean, I do it because it's meaningful. Don't get me twisted, because we've done stuff in the past with because it coincides, like I said, with Black History Month in the UK or other different kind of events. So we've done stuff around Black women and how they are the most harmed group online, how sessions on active online allyship and stuff like that, which is cybersecurity related, obviously, or even things around looking after children online or something like that. But doing that with the parents group or the women's group or something, parents and carers. But the ERGs are much more established. Usually they have exec support. They have mailing lists they can send things out to. So the biggest things I've ever done have been done in partnership with the ERG. So tap into that. Like I said, then you'll come into somebody else's party. You are linking cybersecurity with people's everyday lives. And it gets you. This isn't why I do it again. But we're all fighting for our lives, I think, a little bit of work at the moment, all of us. And so I think if your business is, because let's face it, a lot of them are, what have you done this month? Show me the numbers. Mm-hmm. As much as I hate that and I try and fight that, you can say, well, listen, 200 people came to this, or, 300 people took part in this poll, because you put a little poll at the end of your session or whatever else, you get all that feedback, and you've got those organic numbers already. You don't have to create a security audience, because you have the ERG audience. That is such an easy win, and it's such important work as well.
So I put my hand up because I wanted to stop for a moment and see. I'm used to this because I do podcasts where I have to stop the experts and say, what does ERG mean?
Oh, sorry. Employee Resource Group.
Okay.
So, like your interest, so you might have your pride group, your parents and carers group, your women in
special
tech
interest
group,
groups within the
special
organization.
interest, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think
hopefully you have those. Hopefully you would have those in the organization.
Outside of the numbers, I would say the people would be my measure of success. I think doing that through interviews, talking to people, literally just talking to them, not polls, not, phishing simulations, not anything else, but let's just get out in front of our people and hear what they have to say. As Michelle's alluded to, people love to talk. They love to open up. You might learn a whole bunch about them that's security related or unrelated to security. But I feel like if you have these interviews, regularly with your teams, then once you kind of go through something like October, your November and December interviews should look a little different. They should feel a little different. And that would hopefully give you as a security manager or, section manager, however it is, the confidence that you are making a difference and you're kind of moving the culture forward. Of course, then people are going to say, well, where's the numbers? Show me the savings. What's the ROI? What are we going to, what's our savings in time? And all those things can be computed and looked at at the end of the day. But if those people aren't willing to give you the feedback and talk to you about what they're seeing and what they're experiencing, maybe it was completely over their heads. Maybe it wasn't technical enough, right? So again, if you're just shooting out all these fun games and infographics and prizes and things like that, well, are they doing something? Have you actually stopped and said, to your people, tell me what these did and how they helped you? And I think that would be a good way to kind of measure it.
And we are too obsessed in security with numbers. I'm not saying they don't matter, but we always complain that we don't get credibility. But marketing and sales and finance, everybody else do. And I think, as much as I don't think we are marketing, we are very similar in some respects. And marketing get all this budget and all this attention and support from the business, because they do focus groups. They spend all day. I'm not saying they do nothing, but there's whole teams of people who will spend all day for weeks doing focus groups and listening and then presenting that back. And the board listens, the board laps it up.
Yeah.
And that's not, flashy dashboards and, oh my God, clicking and threat intel and pew maps and everything else. It is just, this is what people said.
Yeah. A representative quote can be really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. So
interesting. So I just wanted to mention, so just to go back for a second, Stefan did put a comment in to just say that in large global organizations, they've got the resources to do KPIs, but in his specific situation, it's more local. And so he's able to just put a group together and, the KPI, as we just talked about, is how many people, were you able to get together and do something meaningful with, right? Fleetus?
So I was going to chime in, then I want to address Elizabeth's comments. This goes back to my salting. If I can just get someone to tell me this is how I do my job and this is how I circumvent you, because they will open up and tell you your control. We've all seen the memes. Here's the path, but you see everyone cutting through the yard, so you see the path and you learn. Okay, maybe I need to redirect my control, technical or administrative control. Sometimes it's just simply my administrative control is not aligned with the culture of my company or for that workforce, and I need to readdress that. So those are another KPI where you can look at your technical and administrative controls and say, hey, finance is circumventing it by just doing Y. And you learn that by having those interviews, by having those conversations. And that's where your awareness program now can go to your policy writers, your GRC, and say, hey, we need to reevaluate. That's a value add, because now you've got a policy that's applicable to your organization. It's now auditable, and it's actually representing your company. And I think people forget about that's how awareness can add value to policies and procedures, by interviewing your employees and learning, I am going to go around you and this is how. And as long as they fill in a blameless opportunity, when it's a blameless, like you say, there's no ramification for you sharing this with me. This is a knowledge. I need to understand how you work because I want you to work securely.
But that's also how you find out that people are sharing passwords and different little things like that. They come up in these conversations and these workflows, and it's we're not gonna chastise you, but we need to know about this so we can change the processes and the procedures and make things better for everyone and make them more safe.
Yeah, and then Elizabeth thing, I just did something like Security 101 for social engineering. If you watch the first couple minutes of Ocean's 8 with Sandra Bullock, she does 4 different social engineering tricks. To get the makeup out of the store in a bag, which you don't stop. She watches someone check out, calls back and says, my plane was delayed. I need my room back. So she gets a hotel room. And then the cleaner never stopped her. because didn't ask for her card, didn't pull the door shut and make her badge back in. And so she was able to tell the cleaning lady to leave. And that's the easiest way, is just use non-technical stories such as that, or the age-old scam. You get to your room within 2 minutes, someone calls you from the front desk. Hey, there's an issue with your credit card. Can you give it to me again?
Mm-hmm.
Not the front desk. It's the adversary who just happened to dial a room because they overheard you just checked in. Those are easy ways to get around that. You're talking about badges and safe words. That goes back to our deep fake thing. Find ways to authenticate yourself. Like, tell people, I'm never going to use that. And if I do, here's how I'm going to do my multi-factor in person with you. I'm going to give you a safe word. I'm going to give you a phrase. I'm going to give you a topic. And I'm going to mention that safe word. I'm going to talk about that topic. I'm going to validate myself over the phone because you can't see me. You can't physically interact with me.
And we now can't even guarantee that the Fleetus we're looking at now is real. Like, that is literally, like, that could be anyone.
What's the safe word, Fleetus?
What's your favorite pizza topping?
Pepperoni. Click armor.
Oh, okay. There we go. You win. So we're going long, but I'm gonna let things go. We haven't even gotten to our discussion points yet, but this is all great stuff. So we just usually ask a few open questions for people to discuss. Not that we need them this time, but I think just looking back, what were some of the best ideas that we've had for activities within social or Security Awareness Month? I think I'm just going to reflect from our past sessions. I think one of the best ideas was, as Fleeta said, just have a regular program that has different themes every month. And then you can pull those things together during October and just sort of review things and make it a little bit more of a highlight and say, this is the stuff that we covered last year. Isn't this great progress, right? And can you remember some of these things?
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, as a big baseball fan myself, it's kind of like, it's a long season, right? So it's like, let's spend 162 games, like getting through the grind of the season. So then, come October, we can play for the World Series. Let's look at it, from a different point of view. And you got to continuously, get better and improve. You're going to go up and down. You're going to have different players. It's going to be a grind. But then, to Scott's point, you've taken that entire runway to get ready for kind of the big show. And, from there, you should be prepared to easily have the resources, have, everything in place that, boom, you can pull it off and you have a very successful month that isn't just a blip in the radar. It's a part of a bigger picture.
Maybe we call it the World Series of Security Awareness.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Michelle or Fleetus?
So I think the long game is probably the best way to call it. So I like your analogy of using baseball, but you can also do football and other things like short passes. All I need is 4 yards per play. Yep. You can take bite-sized chunks. But to take it back to the micro level, I tell my team and I tell others, like, make one change, just one. That'll turn into 2, and then 2 will turn into 4, 4 will turn into 8, 16, 32. It just exponentially grows, but it starts with one bite of the apple. You don't have to take the entire apple, just take one bite of the apple.
Yep. And I'm going to let Michelle go with her any ideas she has, but I'm also just going to ask people to put in the chat, what's the best activity that you've seen work that may give people a good idea going forward?
So I had 2 very quickly that I quite liked. I did the one that everybody always loves, and it goes back to the question we just had about social engineering. I did the SCCTF at DEF CON a few years ago. So I just did this session where I just talked to them about how I found information and the kind of information that you're encouraged to put online, and tried not to make it too scary. And the execs generally see that and love it. And happily the execs came to that session, some of them, and they really enjoyed it and got quite a bit of other requests, quite a few other requests out of that. So that was good, but that was free because I did it. And also I recorded it so you could come back and watch it later, just in case you haven't had enough of me. And slightly bigger thing, because who could ever get enough? But also we did a slightly bigger thing. We did like a mini conference, but I did it over, you can do it on a podcast form. If you wanted like the coolest event, I'm not saying it's something you should necessarily have the resource to do, but that's quite nice because you often have the resource in-house to come and talk to us, or you can even do it just within your security function. Because there's quite a lot of work we need to do within the technical teams as well, even if you're not reaching. People always think you have to reach, marketing and finance and all that, and we do. But we can also do things in-house too. But also quite a lot of people like to come to cybersecurity themed events.
Yeah, you could even run
virtual.
something like our forums internally, right? Just have a
Yeah.
panel of people inside your organization who talk about a different topic every month and open it up as a webinar to all your staff.
Yeah, people can quite. You have to. It depends on the system, depends on the culture, doesn't it?
Yeah,
People,
yeah.
what people come to. But I love the way that Santander have been able to do their little podcast. I really like that idea. I think that's kind of cool because people kind of can listen to it at any point later. And so
Right.
you can do something one month in October, and you can find out by May that there have been thousands of views or whatever. So, and then you've got your metric, haven't you? You've got your number.
Yep.
So I just added something. This is from a previous company. They'll probably get mad at me, but you do Zoom backgrounds. You're in a meeting.
Yeah.
You get a logo, you get a theme. And when I'm talking now, I'm giving you constant reminders. Your best defense against ransomware is you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a constant reminder when we're sitting on a Zoom call. It's very simple. You build a thing, you publish it, you put it out there. You tell them, hey, for this week, here's your background. Use that background. And when you're done, I'll give you something new. And you can put your company logo, put a mascot on it, put whatever you want. But that's the easiest, simplest way to do a constant reminder because I'm going to look at you. And with the in the background, I just now do a subliminal trick. You, like Yogi Bear, or not Yogi Bear, what is it? The forest fire. I just forgot.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
Only you can prevent it. You know the phrase, you know who I'm talking about. Like there's associations. So
yeah.
Oh, planning. Oh my goodness.
What kinds of planning elements do we need to talk about at this point in the year?
Well, if you're kind of lucky, you've got a project manager. Can you imagine? But yeah, you need to have so much planning to do even a small event sometimes. So that's why doing things like what Felicia just said, like the background and things, is great because you can just do that. It's free, and people start noticing it.
Yeah,
and you can make it now, put it on your little planner.
From my experience, I think it's best to start with a discussion with the chief information security officer and probably the head of HR, because it's going to be something that you hopefully will be touching all employees with. And if you can get their agreement that, yes, this is a priority, we should do something, right? Then you can start proposing, well, what does it look like? How much is it going to cost? Who needs to be involved? Do we need to have corporate communications? Can we find somebody that can actually create some graphics that has the corporate branding and things like that? Sometimes that's really important. And if you don't start that stuff early, then you may do a bunch of work and not actually be able to publish anything because it doesn't meet corporate communication standards.
And I know that like what I just did there may not be allowed in some organizations. Like you may not be able to put up San Francisco behind you. You may not be able to put up. I don't know your culture. That goes back to the culture question. If you start early enough, you can get legal's buy-in or HR's buy-in for this month. We're going to ask our employees. Maybe they'll make a temp exclusion just for that month, and then it may evolve into a permanent allowance.
And that's working ahead too. That's working with your teams ahead of time and submitting tickets to have the IT team maybe push this out and do all these different things where you can have these kind of unified things in place that it becomes just automated and everyone becomes a bit of an advertising method for Security Awareness Month.
Yeah, I
it's
mentioned
a good
that.
argument.
We had lock screens for the month. So IT would put out a whole policy. As soon as you lock your PC,
they can push out wallpapers, right? I mean, it's all these little things that, again, with proper planning and in time, they can be executed.
And security comms is a great opportunity to remind us all that our relationship with security comms is fundamental. And ideally, we'd have a security comms team. But we don't. Your relationship with your comms teams are just critical.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to take just a moment to inform people about ClickArmor, the company that brings us these sessions. ClickArmor is actually the first fully interactive security awareness platform, and we built it as a result of my experience in doing security awareness training, using different training platforms, and realizing that security awareness actually needs a different kind of delivery than just your standard learning management systems. So we make fun, interactive lessons and courses, as well as assessments and ways to get feedback from people as well. So the fun announcement I was going to make today is that we are going to offer a promotion for Security Awareness Month. Makes sense, right? So we're going to have a package of 4 3-minute challenges, which are just fun ways to get people on board for just $99. So hopefully that's in somebody's discretionary budget that they can come up with. And it will give you 4 weeks of things that people can talk about and hopefully learn a bit about. Maybe you'll get some visibility into what kind of a different platform we have, and maybe that will be something that you go forward with. So we just hope that we can help you create something that is fun and recurring and hits a lot of the kind of bullets that we talked about earlier today. All right. Final question is, how can we carry on the momentum from Security Awareness Month throughout the year? Let's say that we don't have a program and we're just going to use Security Awareness Month as the kickoff, or maybe there's another way to make use of the month. How do we make sure that it actually carries on?
Security champions, I would say, would be a great one. Just making sure that those people, carry the momentum, from the month on, and executive buy-in. Again, it should just be culture from the top down. And hopefully by setting the groundwork in October, especially like I said, if this is an organization that's paying attention to security for the first time because of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, that's fantastic. So now I think it's also the community's responsibility to keep talking about these topics and having thought leaders, on LinkedIn and other, forums that are continuously pushing out this valid information that the security professionals can share with their team. So, and we're all here because we love cybersecurity, we love security awareness, and we want to learn more. So what can we do? Well, let's take our knowledge and pass it down. And it's bring it to your teams, bring it to your other networks, and just kind of, let's just keep passing on the information, because if we don't, it's going to die. And we're going to all be here just banging our heads against the wall, being frustrated.
Commiserating,
yes. Stuck inside.
Any other thoughts on carrying momentum?
I think it goes, I'll just repeat, like bite size. Try not take bite-sized chunks, like start slow and grow and mature. Go from a compliance program that's just a checkbox and move on. Like just get past the compliance checkbox, which most programs start as, and then just continue to evolve with everything we talked about today. So many tips that we can reiterate, but that's how you carry the momentum, is you just start with a small bite-sized chunk and then add champions, add buy-in, add consistent comms. If you're going to communicate consistently.
I was just going to say, one of the things I think, and we've sort of touched on a little bit, is if you can have the authority or the ability to publish anything, as security guidance throughout the year. Maybe you do need to work with security comms or corporate comms to create something. But if you're passionate about security and security awareness, it shouldn't take you very much time at all to find some article that you can publish once a month, right? Just find a theme. We talked about doing a theme every month, but just publish, a few paragraphs. Put it in the corporate newsletter or have a separate bulletin that you send out. And if you schedule that as a regular activity, people tend to come to expect it. And if you start out slow, once a month is not that ambitious. And I think you should be able to create a few paragraphs a month that you can actually publish to people and get your name known, get some of the topics to start flowing. And I think as long as you can create that schedule for your own self-discipline, that will actually carry some of the momentum and allow you to build other things off of it. All right. So we're at the end, unfortunately, and it was a great discussion. There's always good input from the crowd and panelists. But if you have a favorite point or takeaway, we do record these sessions, just so you know, and we publish them on our YouTube channel. We also take transcriptions of them. And if you want a transcript of the session, you could always download it from YouTube and somehow get it. But just let us know, because we'd be happy to provide it for you. But would really like to hear any thoughts, and this would come through in the transcriptions. What do you think was the best takeaway from today's session? For me, I think, some of the things that Michelle and Fleetus brought up were really interesting, just as ways to build, new kinds of ideas. But anybody else have any thoughts?
I think it was my idea, but I'll just reiterate it. Why is it only in October? It should be every month. It's just me.
Yeah.
For those who followed me, I like asking the next generation, what concerns you? What are you learning? Like, what do you think about this topic? And it doesn't, it could be any topic. Like I posted the other week, how do I explain cybersecurity to a middle schooler?
Yeah, that was
Not
fantastic.
provoking question. But there are some intelligent middle schoolers, but there's also, they don't have the life experiences we have. So getting their perspective is just like asking a board member or a congressperson or a leader in your organization is going to have a different perspective than the entry level person. So I'm attributing my middle schooler to an entry level person. And then I've got my board who's going to ask a different question.
Great. That's a new idea. That's awesome. All right. So just to wrap up, we have scheduled another session for June 28th. This QR code will get you to the registration page where you can sign up right now if you want. Or you can send me a note on LinkedIn if you'd like to be a panelist or have ideas, especially, we have to come up with poll questions and questions for the discussion. So if you have ideas on remediating employee vulnerabilities, some of the things that we learn from doing phishing simulations or from our training quizzes and things like that, we learn about what people are vulnerable to. How do we do that analysis? How do we do some of the remediation itself? So I'd like to dig into that a little bit, see if people have questions that we could ask in the polls and open discussions. So with that, any last roundtable comments, Michelle?
And that's been great. It's been really interesting. And I saw Elizabeth's comment in the chat about listening. I think it's really good. It's a good opportunity to listen, isn't it? October.
It is. And to dress up.
and that.
Don't forget Halloween.
I will be dressed up.
You should have a dress code for Security Awareness Month. Everybody has to wear a superhero.
Can I dress up? Can I dress up as a pumpkin or a dragon or whatever else? Nobody's ever keen, so we'll see this year.
All right. Well, thanks very much, everybody, for joining us. We will see you again on June 28th at 1 p.m. Eastern time.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Michelle. Thanks, Fleetus.
It's the next topic of employee vulnerabilities goes back to the human-centric thing that I've spent a lot of time on recently, and I'm spending a lot more time on it with research, trying to get more data points. It's backed by science, because the more science I can find behind this, because I had a friend who published something. They showed the trend from 2000 to 23 on what we spent on technology, and then the trend on what we spent on the human OS.
Wow.
The human OS is flat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. We don't do updates, security patches, or anything on the humans.
The only time we upgrade is when we go from boyfriend to husband, then we go from husband to grandfather, and we go from grandfather to grave. That's our upgrade path. So don't get
That's fantastic. I love that. And soon to be published, Fleetus, correct? You will soon be published?
It's published now.
It is published now?
The link that's on LinkedIn is my human-centric article that I did.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, and I'm still doing research around my human deepfake, because I'm really trying to see what I can do to get that some more trending, because it came up at a Gartner conference somewhere, because someone else reached out to me because they heard what we had here and there, and I'm trying to figure out if I can collaborate on that one. Because I think, to your point, I work at a remote company. I've never met my boss. It's going to be 2 years, almost a year and a half, and I'm going to meet him for the first time. So
we might be able to help you with that, because we just because I'm trying to get us to do that, and we ran a kind of a promotion around that. I can't really say anymore because I don't want to identify where I work. But
no, that's totally fine, because I tell a lot of people.
But we've got a partnership, so about around that kind of thing. It could be quite interesting. So that is something.
OTPs are great. One-time passwords work, and we've showed that because of resets. Can you do that with a human? And how do you sustain it? How can it be sustained? Because we all know key pairs grow. On just the four of us here, that's 16 keys just for the four of us to talk right now. If I wanted to do an OTP with each, I had to have 16 keys right just to talk to all of you.
Mm-hmm.
That gets hard when it's a big group. So that's when you have to put people in your crowd who you trust by them, and then they trust, so you get trust associations. And that gets difficult because the more layer you remove, the less trust you have. It starts strong. Like, your front door, I'm okay if it's locked. What about a closet door? What about an interior door? Like, that's where it starts. Like, I'm not as secure if I lock my closet. Like, that doesn't protect me. I'm still in my clothes, but I protected my clothes. I locked my closet door.
Yeah.
You would be in Switzerland because everybody has the nuclear bunker in their house. So you'd actually be you'd be good there.
Those are the things, like taking abstract is why I enjoyed this piece, because I can work technology all day long. It's put it into a story form that people can apply to, which is probably why I spend too much time telling story.
I think that's needed, though. I think people need the stories, and that's forgotten, and also they need their stories told back, which is what we're good at. Because we've said already, like, it's really important to go out and talk to them, because people are like, why has this breach happened, and why are people doing this, and why do people complain about this MFA? And then you go out and talk to those teams, and it's like, well, because we've got this and this. Because there's always an edge case, and there's always, weird. I don't even want to say weird, because people are just trying to do their jobs, So it's normal and completely routine, and we can often put barriers in their way. But at least, even if we can't resolve it, at least they've been heard. People just want to be listened to,
Like,
they want to feel like, yeah.
But like, I've got to the point now where I won't use zero trust outside of my circle. And I put that in the article because zero and trust mean two different things to different people. And you put them together, they have no context what zero trust means.
Yeah.
I don't use it outside of IT or security. I just I have to pick and choose the words I use.
It means nothing, does it? But it'd be like finance words would mean nothing to me. And to be honest with you, marketing or sales words would mean nothing, because we all have our own language. And we forget that in security as well, don't we? Because we try and it can be quite military language, and I think people get quite excited.
Well, there's also the marketing language that gets people. Like, AI is a marketing language, right? Like, we're not in artificial intelligence like world. We're in a machine learning world that we have to tell the machine what to know in order for it to answer our questions, right? We're not in the future where it's making its own decisions and stuff. So there's a marketing problem there too, right? And phishing simulation is becoming one of those words, I think, in my mind. It's becoming a marketed word that's causing more distraction and distress to people than actual performance and providing metrics.
And that's why, like, you keep hearing me go back to human-centric, managing human risk, because I think we've done the same thing with security awareness. It's low sting. It doesn't add value to a lot of people when I say security awareness. What does that mean?
Yeah. Actually, that's another topic we should actually bring to the forum is, should we be changing from security awareness to human risk management? I hear that a lot now.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, Michelle had a great point earlier. What are we aware of? Right when you just make a blanket statement, what are we supposed to be aware of? And I don't think it's identifying. The title isn't representing what we're trying to achieve.
The only thing that I do like human risk management, the only thing that I don't like is the fact that I think we sit too closely to HR in a lot of, and this is nothing against HR. If my organisation is HR are watching, then I love you, because you're great. But we all know there's bad HR, and I think because I think Cletus alluded to this earlier, so we came from compliance, and it can just be compliance, and actually it starts out as compliance. Oh my God, we need awareness, we need training, we need those awful phishing sims, and to move away from that. But that is effectively almost an HR function, isn't it? Are the people doing their mandatory training? Are they, are we tick boxing it, or business continuity at base? And unfortunately, those areas protect the business; they don't work with the business. We know that, so it's moving us away. And I think if we go to human risk management, I think I wouldn't be against it, but I think we would need to very, very clearly define what we meant, because I've had jobs where I've had to walk out of interviews midway through the interview because they've been saying, would you fire this person for clicking a link? Would you fire them? And if you say it on LinkedIn, people will say, but people should be fired if they click a link.
Oh,
but I've had that. I've got screenshots.
I've seen people.
I'm not
say
after
that
going
too,
for people.
yeah.
I'm not after.
I came from an org who was a 3-strike and you were out. It was a 2-year contractor before they realized that security was clicking.
Yeah, because security are the worst ones in France.
Yeah, as of a few months ago, there was a Canadian bank that had a 3-strike rule on clicking links, and so they were.
It's mad though, because they're good. Because they're so clever though now as well. So you often see stuff and you're thinking, I would have no idea. I'm glad that didn't come through to me. We've seen some stuff in the last couple of weeks where it is just so clever. There's so much information out there on people. And I think that's another problem that we have. We can't solve it. It's one of these problems. But people do create secure passwords. We've all created secure passwords and then had all our information, but like my information was leaked in the DHS, all my biometrics, all of it. Great. But I mean, I that was secure, wasn't it? So I was let down. And so that really erodes the trust as well.
Well, especially the common user that was, guided into password managers, and then their password manager was breached. And so now they're like, I thought I was doing the most advanced thing I could do in my ecosystem by using a password manager. And now that trust is gone. Like, now where do I turn? Right.
Yeah.
Like that, those are basic fundamental. Yeah.
And that would be a good, it's what to do post breach, because I think people forget the post breach activity. So, because that's the other thing I was going to talk about, using event, incident, and breach. Most of them are interchangeable outside of our work. An event just means something happened. An incident means you got in. A breach means I lost data. So that's the breach is what you when you lose something. That means they got something. An incident just means they got in. An event just means something happened in your environment. The event is I logged in. Was it me or not? So helping people understand the difference between event, incident, and breach, because they mean different things.
And what to do, like I'm trying to create if you know of any, then this would be great, but I'm trying to create a whole resource list so that when so we can give people advice and our champions can kind of disseminate that. So, because it's not just, oh my God, what's happening, because what's happened if there's ransomware or breach or whatever else, because we will deal with that organizationally. But if it's for them personally, they need to know like what to do with, I think it's FTC has got great advice on credit freezes, and a lot of other governments do, but it's trying to get that,
all the information's there, but it's all over the place, right? So it's like so what's the roadmap of, like, if I was breached, I want an infographic that says, okay, like the first thing I should do is contact my bank, right? Like, start with your top down, kind of your most serious threats, and just.
I want to mention it. It's the localization things. We're talking globally. All of us on this call are going to do something different because of where we live, where we work. I mean, there's ways to make it localized.
We can't do credit freezes in Canada,
No, but that's the thing. It's like, because I can say that, because when I get stuff in and we work out that it's something that's happened with somebody personal, and this has happened quite a few times over my career, I'm sure it has with you all, you're thinking, right, okay, God, I need to know what the process is for that country. And sometimes I've had colleagues who know because they just know, but other times it's just you, and you're like, okay, what happens in South Korea? God help me.
But I also think it's a valid point to be able to support our people. Like, if we're going to try and build a security culture, and it's people centric, right? And we're going to kind of hound them and talk to them and be on top of them for corporate security, but then we don't prime them or prep them for what to do on their personal security, then we're kind of letting them down in a sense, because again, if we're the experts, and I mean, there's the devil's advocate in me. I would say, if my boss came to me and said, do all this for corporate, but they're not going to talk about my personal security, like, what's the point? Like, I'm just like, what's the, like, help me out here, right? But if I came and said, like, here's just a quick tip, on how to protect yourself.
There are certain organizations, because they don't want the liability of their employees coming after them if something happens. I've been in places I've consulted on. It's like, well, I can mention it, but I have to salt. That's why my salting conversation. They have to do undertones. Yeah. Hey, you can apply this to this technology, implying, hey, you have a router, right? Hey, put it on your router. Like, not saying go do it to your router.
Yeah. It could apply. If you happen to have a router, you could happen to install a theoretical.
If you've ever installed an app on a mobile device that you use to communicate, you may want to check these settings.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it is quite challenging.
But I mean, that's where I think, to Michelle's point, we all love HR, we all love legal, but they get in the way. And because there's also this perception of, well, my liability. Oh, what if something happens? Like, what if I help Johnny, put a password on his mother's computer, and then she gets hacked? And it was like, well, what? Who sits and spends their time thinking about those scenarios to then make the decision to not help someone?
Son's laptop you hardened and you cleaned ransomware off or malware off is now coming after you because he got it again because he was going to a pirated site to play his video games.
Yeah,
that would not have happened.
Yeah, so it is a nightmare. And you do, so if you don't have recommended password managers, you have to say password managers exist or whatever else. But which is normal anyway, because you wouldn't really want the liability. But I've done my favorite ones are the dating app when all that kind of security, and you have to. It's a whole uneven kind of ground. You can run over a lot of dodgy territory there. But I don't care. And also,
But, I mean,
tend to
if I
do
made a
things
recommendation, if I
Right.
made a recommendation to a colleague that's saying, hey, you should just go buy a new Hyundai because they make great affordable electric cars, right? And then they go buy that Hyundai and then it catches on fire and burns down their house. Am I liable for that, for making a recommendation to my employee?
Depends on the country.
Yeah, it probably does.
Right.
But you probably wouldn't. It's like, the thing is, we don't want to be suggesting brands, but then at the same time, I have said I don't really suggest Ring. It's not that I don't suggest Ring. I say be aware that Ring cameras do this, or I don't want to say anything on this because I might get legally say things about certain brands. Other brands exist and they're not, problems. They all of them have problems. So it's that kind of positioning. So you say something about everybody, and then you haven't been litigious.
We've taught our users, you used the WebMD earlier, we taught everyone to be a doctor. They're not a doctor, but WebMD tells them they're a doctor. Well, we've done the same thing with cyber. We've told them to go Google it, go now chat GPT it. They think they have an answer, and then they get themselves in trouble. And it's like, well, you taught me this skill. Well, I taught you, like I did teach you how to do open source intel. I did not say come in and expose your colleague because of what you found by doing open source intel.
Yeah, no, and that's very true. When I was teaching with U of T and stuff in the cybersecurity boot camp, how many times we had to like preface it and say it out loud and read the script. Any of the tools that we're about to show you cannot be used in the real world, and if you and you have to have written consent for engagement and SOW and all these things, right? Just because, again, you give someone a Kali Linux instance, and all of a sudden they've got like Wireshark, and they're like, oh, I'm just going to go to Starbucks and start, you're like, well, pump the brakes, right? So it's like, yeah, you have to be careful.
You tell me I can't sniff packets on a public Wi-Fi? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm telling you, sniff all the packets you want, Fleetus. Just don't tell me about it.
Just don't do it when you're